And everybody is now using large language models for the most obvious productivity improvements. So we all have seen the examples. We will see entire new product lines, new business lines appearing because that become possible with GenAI, which were never really be possible without GenAI. It's new and different with machine learning that you can build a software system that becomes every day a single bit better.
Hi everybody, welcome to the Devico Breakfast Bar. Here we speak with different people involved in the business landscape, share their expertise, delve into the latest tech trends, and explore the ins and outs of IT outsourcing. I'm Oleg Sadikov, and today I'm excited to have Daniel Gebler, CTO and founder at Bionic, the world's fastest growing online supermarket. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss new episodes. Hi Daniel, and thanks for joining me today.
Thanks a lot for having me, Oleg.
Let's start our podcast with a little blitz. I start a sentence and you continue, okay?
Exciting. Looking forward to it.
Entrepreneurship gave me.
Fulfillment.
Entrepreneurship deprived me.
Not much. Actually, it's so enjoyable.
My main superpower is.
Focus.
My main weakness is.
Probably also focus.
Okay. When I'm afraid, I
just take a step back in order to make 2 steps ahead.
Sounds good. That's it. Okay. I will start asking questions. That's the reason why we're here.
Sure.
Can you share your journey from your early days in the business world to founding Bionic?
Yes. So my background is actually, I'm coming originally from Germany, where I grew up. I studied computer science. I also studied business economics. And at some point, I ended up in the Dutch tech ecosystem, where I was first part of a business called Fretterber, where we built a B2B recommendation engine. So basically this functionalities like users who bought also that, or you may like that product, which companies like Amazon have built by themselves. And then the rest of the industry basically used a SaaS solution. And we have built one of the solutions that was very prominently used in Europe, a bit in US, and a bit in APAC. So in that kind of journey, we just got some insights about the retail market, and was interesting. I said non-food retail, so retail in electronics, books, fashion was already pretty well developed. Food was still in the very early days, and then we tried to get a bit of an understanding of what is the reason why not so many people are actually comfortable with buying food online. We identified gaps in the market, so people wanted to have fresh products, people wanted to have delivery on time. They don't want to pay online more than offline. And based on that kind of insights, we packaged it together in a proposition, which we later called in Bionic and launched in 2015. And that started from a very small prototype, initially in stealth mode. So that means not even branded, up to the point where we launched first in many, many cities in Netherlands, then expanded in Germany, and more recently now also in France, where we're now serving in total more than 5 million customers.
Sounds great. What current trends in AI and automation do you find most exciting or transformative for your industry?
Yeah, Bionic itself and our tech story has been centered around data-driven products and data-driven innovation. So that means AI and machine learning is nothing new to us. We used the first kind of 2-3 years to build basically the underlying infrastructure. And then since around 2017-18, we have been using very actively machine learning and deep learning. What excited us in the beginning was especially productivity tools, plus also the entire world of forecasting, prediction, where we built for essentially every single kind of city, every single neighborhood, a very detailed forecasting model. And more recently, we got very excited about the capabilities that you have with large language models. And everybody is now using large language models for the most obvious productivity improvements. So we all have seen the examples from Klarna and others, where you can see that obviously you can do an existing process more efficient. But actually, I don't think that this is the most exciting part of the technology story of large language models. So GenAI actually opens up product innovation in a very unique new way, where we will see entire new product lines, new business lines appearing, because that become possible with GenAI, which were never really be possible without GenAI. So this means, for instance, in our context, we can offer a broader assortment, we can tailor it more, we can, for instance, offer product images tailored to every customer's taste, which is without GenAI not possible. But then now you can say if you have 5 million customers, then you want to have for every single product also 5 million versions, which are really tailored to the customer need. So these are one of the cases where we are pretty excited about how you can really define the personalized store, the ultimate personalized store that looks really different for every single customer.
PwC research shows that 72% of consumers expect companies to use their data to personalize their experience. How do you think customer expectations are changing with the advancements in AI and automation, and how should companies adapt to these changes?
What customers expect, maybe better pricing, better service, a broader service, deeper service, etc. So this is a very natural expectation from a customer side, and every business needs to cope with that. Customers are typically not explicitly asking, I want to have now a retail experience or I want to have a manufacturing service based on GenAI. This is a tool or a means to an end. Nonetheless, I think what they are asking and what everybody gets excited about is the endless opportunities of using a GenAI tooling or functionality. And this is not so much about the GenAI part per se, but it's more about the machine learning side. And what is fundamentally new and different with machine learning is that you can build a software system that becomes every day a single bit better by training it on a daily basis based on the operation that you have seen on a day. Let me give you a very concrete example. So we are currently driving every day around 1.5 million kilometers on Dutch, German, and French highways. So what happens then is if you take that kind of data, all the learnings from a single day, into your planning model for the next day, then the operation of the next days, the forecasting, but also the actual steering on the day becomes better because you have now not only the training data that you have from the day before yesterday and etc., but you have also from yesterday and from today's data included in the way how you predict for tomorrow. But, and this is the exciting part, you get that out of the box without any additional software engineering. So that means software engineers and the machine learning engineers can actually focus on a complete different subject while your system that you have developed yesterday is improving based on this kind of new data. And we have now transformed our entire stack to really be this kind of self-learning. You can also call this the Bionic venture that is really improving every day with the operation that is happening on the respective day.
That sounds very interesting, to be honest. According to a World Economic Forum report, 85 million jobs could be displaced by automation by 2025, but around 97 million new ones could be created. There is a lot of talk about AI potentially replacing software developers. I personally think that AI will automate some tasks, it will also create new ones, requiring a shift in developers' skill set rather than complete replacement. What are your thoughts on this, and what role do you see for developers in AI-driven future?
Obviously, I don't have a crystal ball, so we will see a bit how the future will look like. You will have certainly two counter trends. Some of the work that now is done in engineering, but also many, many other disciplines, can be certainly automated. There's no doubt about that. That means if this is automated, no longer a human needs to do this, a machine can do it. There is certainly new work that will become necessary, that are the kind of the new jobs that will be done. The real question that is asked here is, will one trend offset the other trend? Which trend is bigger? And the typical argument is in the past, usually the kind of the newly emerging work is at least on the same level as the existing work. However, we had always a longer time to adapt to this. Now we have a much shorter cycle. Will actually society fast enough create new jobs while the old ones will be automated? I think the more interesting perspective to take is the following. If you're looking to value creation in a software development lifecycle, then the first 50% writing boilerplate code, writing the very first implementation can be very likely be automated. You write a prompt and you get a pretty decent first version. But the second half is usually bound by constraints, that the remaining 50%, by constraints on how much story points you have given to a specific user story, how much budget you got from your project manager, how much budget you got from your client. What in nearly every engineer will tell you is, if I would have a little bit more time, I would make it a little bit more scalable, I would make it a little bit more extensible, I would make it easier testable, etc. Just imagine what we now are able to do, that everything what engineers are already dreaming of to do additionally, if they would have a little bit more time and budget, they are now able to do, because the relatively simple first 50% are getting automated. So I expect that if you look in a grander scheme on projects, we will spend roughly the same amount of work, but we will just get a much better outcome, because the straightforward work can be done in a at least partially automated way through prompts. And we are just spending more time on the high value addition that is happening in the last 50% or last 20%. The real question that we as a software industry have is, if you're only focusing on the remaining 50% or remaining 20%, let's say the high value, more complex work, refining and extending existing solutions, how do we build up enough engineers that are able to do that type of work? And the reason why I'm saying that is, we are able to build complex systems because we have all started with building simple systems, small systems in the beginning, and then you have built a little bit more complex system, and then everybody has built a distributed system, and then you have large scale distributed systems, then you have built systems that are on distributed and charted databases, etc. So we all went through this kind of journey to actually get to the point that we can really build and extend a complex system. If now the first step, building this small, simple, non-distributed solution, is done by a machine, so that means we don't have intellectually actually go through those steps of creating the implementation for that, will we be able to do the more complex work on top of the initial work that has been done by a machine or by this kind of Gen AI system? The judgment of that is still out there. Our proof point is, we have used a Copilot on our side quite a bit. And our learning is that for experienced engineers, it can be a very powerful tool. It can be a tool for starting engineers to get already a nice proposal, that they get something started, but it hampers their learning. So they learn less during their engineering journey by taking something out of the box from a Copilot like a recommender system, instead of building from the bottom up the solution.
You mentioned about roles. How do you think how these new roles will look like in the future?
This is not easy to really project, but what I can see is the notion of a more generalistic engineers that can actually really guide the process from requirements engineering and sometimes even requirements analysis up to the point of retrospectives. So if you have rolled out a kind of a new feature, how effective is it? What is future improvement potential? Which is a combination between a product owner, a technical product owner, and actually a solution engineer, solution designer, implementation engineer. I think those kind of very widely educated and trained engineers will become even more important. While the specialists that do one single task very well, obviously is also needed for some aspects, but I expect that those kind of more narrow, specialistic, very deep tasks will be easier automatable by a system or by a Gen AI system than this more generic kind of wider tasks that are necessary in software engineering. What we will also see is that system building will actually become no longer a pure technical discipline. It will become a company discipline, a business plus tech function together. If you're using something like Copilot or AI supported coding systems, there's no reason why you need to be a trained engineer to actually work with such a system. You can do a lot as a business analyst if you use such a system.
What practical advice would you give to young entrepreneurs who want to make a significant impact in their industries?
I'm not sure if there's any specific advice that those kind of entrepreneurs need, beside maybe some suggestions on what they should look for. We are living in a world now with in the Gen AI world, the following thing will happen. And we will have a convergence towards meaning or the commoditization of the meaning. The average solution to a problem that you can basically generate out of the publicly available data will be totally commoditized, will be have very little value. So which means that if you're an entrepreneur, if you want to build something, if you want to create value add for your through a product or through a solution towards customers, then the kind of the average service, the average product will provide very little value for customers. However, if you go significantly above the average, then you can really create a lot of entrepreneurial value. What I'm saying now has already existed in an entrepreneurial world for a long time. So this is not per se new, but we will see this type of winner takes all type of dynamic in a market where if you go significantly above the commoditized solution, will have an even stronger effect, which means that we will, I think, from a trend perspective, we will see actually much smaller organizations. So the kind of type of organizations that we have hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands people together working on a large product portfolio is something which I strongly believe will no longer exist at some point, or at least in a way less often way in the tech world. But we will see much more kind of tailored solutions. We will see unicorns that are built by a few people, probably not by just one, even if that is discussed. But we will see certainly effects that with smaller teams, very impactful, narrow solutions will actually make the major impact.
Interesting. Yeah, I totally agree that it might come. Look at the gaming industry. There, one, two people can create masterpieces that cost millions,
Yeah.
millions, many millions. And the same could be here for sure, especially with AI. The Netherlands ranks highly in global innovation indexes, showcasing a strong tech talent pool and infrastructure. Being based in Netherlands, do you notice any unique challenges or opportunities in the tech industry in your region compared to the other parts of the world?
Every country and every industry, including also innovation industries, have challenges essentially to continue to innovate going forward. And I think one of the main challenges that we have in Europe in general, and that holds, for instance, for Netherlands, for Germany, France, UK, is that we have very strong universities. So innovation starts on a few pillars. One of the key pillars is the people that innovate, and the other one is the climate and the environment in which you innovate. We have actually fantastic people in Europe. What often is not happening is providing them the right context that they can innovate. And we are also too often falling in a trap that we are happy with already an incremental solution, an incremental innovation. This kind of big picture thinking and forcing yourself always, what would we need to do that you do not only 10%, but maybe a 10x or 100x, and not only dreaming it up, but also taking action that you get there, is a philosophy and mentality that I feel we are really missing in Europe. We are trying to apply this in a significant way in Picnic, but we also see is that this requires essentially for everybody who joins such an organization a significant adoption.
IT outsourcing is a major trend in the tech industry. What are your thoughts on the advantages and disadvantages of outsourcing tech functions?
I think technology has many aspects that are required and are done in the technology industry. The technology delivery, basically doing an implementation, translating a requirement in a solution, and realizing the solution in a scalable and extensible way, is something which actually doesn't need to be an internal function. So their outsourcing is something that can work in a very effective way. However, it needs to be work very closely with product and business functions together, meaning the function of how do you define a product feature set, how you define requirements, is something what typically organizations have a very good understanding. And I would also encourage everybody to think very carefully that key product design and product feature functions should not be outsourced in an organization. product is probably the most important aspect that an organization has that is really driving their business development. And that is something which can be obviously done in close collaboration with external partners. And to some extent, aspects can be outsourced. But the end responsibility, accountability, the responsibility needs to stay in the organization. On the other hand, what I see is where it can work very effectively is if you work on prototypes. And the typical limitation for experimentation and prototyping is how many people do we have internally that can work on more uncertain experimentation projects. So there is an effective function for use of external partners that can, on the one hand, build a part of those experiments, but then also can become a responsible party to realize a scalable solution when an experiment was successful. So there I see, I think, a very nice symbiosis. So external partners, outsourcing partners are becoming an effective accelerator for experimentation capability of an organization, but also extending it to the point that you build a scalable product.
How do you see the role of IT outsourcing evolving in the context of your industry's future needs?
I think outsourcing, in the sense of that you have external partners that take over as part of your tech functions that you have in the organization, will continue to exist. It is difficult to say if it will increase or decrease, but what I see, especially in the context of generative AI, innovations, etc., the biggest function that now outsourcing partners have is to not only fill a capacity gap, but also fill skill gap. And skill gap is not only a kind of engineering skill gap, but this is also a skill gap on the way how you experiment with new technologies, how you actually make the product discovery in organization work. Meaning that there are certainly business developers, business leaders that have a specific vision on how maybe a tech stack and a product stack should further evolve, but finding the right angle to develop a product portfolio that can really live up to this innovation idea of a business developer. This is where I see really is that internal resources, internal teams need to work together with external parties.
Are there specific regions, countries that you find particularly promising in tech talent? And how do you navigate challenges associated with the global talent pool?
The interesting thing is that talent is actually pretty equally distributed over the world. However, talent itself, without having the possibility to develop themselves in a sufficient way and to unlock the potential, because you need to work in a specific context, these kind of opportunities are certainly not equally distributed over the world. Which means that while the raw talent is equally distributed in the world, there are certainly major differences if somebody talented comes from West Europe versus maybe other areas in the world. So in that sense, there's certainly a difference of the appetite of organizations, how much efforts they want to put in the talent development in the own organization. What we have done is initially, if you start a new venture, you usually don't have much resources and focus and time to really make much explicit talent development in the organization. So that means you're focusing on hiring people that can be productive from day one. But now we are nearly in year 10. We have real programs where we are onboarding people that we are building up. So we have built up the Picnic Tech Academy, which is developing step by step new joiners that are coming maybe from a university or from another part of the world in a way that they can become sometimes after 3 months, after 6 months, 9 months, 12 months, sometimes also just after 2 years, really effective in the organization. And that is an investment in the future of those kind of new joiners, which we see is really paying off in a significant way.
As we wrap up our conversation, what advice would you give to business leaders considering outsourcing as a part of their growth strategy, beside the ones you already shared?
Don't be afraid of working with somebody else together, but keep in mind that everything what is for you mission critical, you should be able at some point to run yourself. It is your business, you're responsible to run it on your own feet at some point.
Daniel, thanks for your time. Thanks for joining me today. Amazing conversation, amazing insights, predictions, thoughts. It was great. Thank you for that.
Thank you. Thanks, Oleg.
If you enjoy our discussion and want to stay updated on future episodes, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell. That way you will not miss out on the new latest insights and conversations from the Devico Breakfast Bar. See you in the next episode.